Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabello with Hard Lens Media, and I got an epic exclusive follow-up interview with an outstanding guest, Matt Orfalea. Now, who is Matt Orfalea? Well, this is the guy that created that epic Bernie Sanders video. He's done a lot of great content on his YouTube channel. He has been outspoken, especially on social media, but yet the vote blue no matter who hypocrites, the diehard Biden supporters, and of course the neoliberal establishment kept going after him, trying to tear him down, but yet he still stands, and yet right now, we have him on our show. Matt Orfalea, for our viewers and subscribers, can you please reintroduce yourself in case people have forgotten who you are?
Well, I would describe myself as like Jimmy Dore likes to describe himself as a YouTube jagoff. That always scares me because he's got like 1 million subscribers. So what does that make you and me, Kit? But I am just a YouTuber and occasional journalist, and I specialize in video mashups and documentary as well. I was actually a producer on a recent documentary called Bernie Blackout.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's what it makes us. We're troublemakers, and that's how we should be. I mean, we got to stir up the pot. We got to shake the system up, because as far as I'm concerned, this is something that's been enraging me, because I've been dealing with a lot and watching this whole entire travesty just break apart. And I just maybe want to just go back to the beginning, especially when these hypocrites in the establishment, the liberal media, the liberal blue checkmark people on social media, the vote blue no matter who people who keep on finger wagging at people that, if you don't fall in line or vote Democrat, you are basically electing Trump, even though I'm voting third party. Third party means I'm not supporting Trump or Biden because the Democrats and Republicans are all the same. And they were constantly, and even now, they're still trying to tear you down, even though you're pointing out like, hey, there's something fundamentally wrong with the Biden campaign. Hey, voter outreach isn't working right. And more importantly, you're letting Trump constantly outplay you. So, I mean, these Democrats obviously aren't seeing the whole big picture. So when it came down to these hypocritical blue checkmark people, these liberal reporters, when they were trying to tear you down, essentially, can you just give us a background to what the likes of Neer Tanden and all these other wonderful people in the whole world were trying to do to you and constantly smear your character?
Sure. Well, I had been making part of my interests on YouTube has been Bernie Sanders and the progressive movement. And that even as far back as MLK in his progressive movement,
right.
Which gets kind of interesting because when my videos finally did get the attention of the Sanders campaign in 2020, I'd heard that they had enjoyed my videos since back in 2016. But when Sean King, who was a surrogate for Bernie in 2020, when he uploaded one of my videos on his Twitter account, it got so much attention that they actually, reached out to me. And they did offer me a job. I visited the headquarters and they offered me a job. This is kind of a dream come true for me. Seeing how I had been making these videos essentially for free with some very little donations, which I do appreciate on Patreon and such, but it's very little. And I saw this finally coming together, and it was very, very exciting. And then what happened was a anonymous Twitter troll dug up some of my old work and took it completely out of context. One of the videos was an old video I made remixing MLK's I Have a Dream speech. And the whole purpose of this video, in addition to admittedly trying to have some fun, similar to South Park, the purpose was to show how easily media can be manipulated. It was a deep fake video before the term deep fake even existed.
Right.
So I wanted to warn people. It was a commentary, social commentary on like, this is how easily people can get manipulated by the media. And it was happening then, and it's happening now. anyway, so that's what I did. I mashed up MLK. I have a dream speech, just kind of make it sound kind of like a lunatic. But she took out the context. That part was cropped out of the description in one of her screenshots. And she also omitted the fact that while that was over 10 years ago, I clearly had have tons of respect for MLK's work, seeing how I've made dozens of videos celebrating MLK since then, and before this, was turned into a controversy. So it would just take anybody 1 second to just look at my work and say, like, clearly he has no disrespect for MLK. Rather, he has a ton of respect. So anyway, the most depressing part about this story, or saddest part, really, is how the Bernie campaign caved to this smearing. Mm-hmm. While I had dedicated so much time, volunteered so much time to battle the smears against Bernie Sanders, just the terrible smears from people with no principles. Like, they're just smearing and twisting facts to smear Bernie Sanders. Despite that effort that I put in, and it was successful, mm-hmm. I had a lot of success doing it, made lots of viral videos, and it had a big impact. And just a second of that comes after me, and then Bernie Sanders campaign drops me in a second. Kit, they wouldn't even, I said, let me write you something. Just give me a day. Let's take a day to let me explain what went on here, to defend myself. Just give me a day, because the attacks, there were so many attacks. You mentioned Neera Tanden. Neera Tanden called me a racist, former Clinton campaign advisor.
The same Clintons, mind you, who actually created the ridiculous crime bill, or actually Bill Clinton, who passed that ridiculous crime bill that also Joe Biden helped create too. But no one wants to talk about that racist bill at all. But yet they want to call you names. It just once again shows their hypocrisy. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Please continue on though.
That's a good point. And so they're taking, like, I used the word retarded, for example, to describe myself. Now, this is not a big deal. And yet, but there's all these little things coming at me being blown out of proportion. And they're so obviously absurd, but it takes time to address all this bullshit. And I wasn't even given a couple hours. I wrote a draft explaining the situation that was leaked to the press. And, so in this version, I, resigned. I was like, at the end, and that was leaked to the press. And so that was that. You given no chance to defend myself. It was kind of messed up. They didn't give me a chance, or they didn't even give it a chance. And I was told that this is very high up in the Bernie campaign, that there was going to be a debate question about my hire on the NBC debates. Now hold on. And so that was explained to me as part of their reason why they were so hysterical about this, and why this was such a big deal to them to be addressed and to essentially disassociate themselves with me. And in my mind, I'm like, guys, this would be, I don't know why you would be worried about this being a debate question, because then you can just tell everybody how bullshit it is, and then you can send them all to this viral video that that's converting people all over the place. You had former, not just former, but current CNN pundits, Van Jones. He shared it. It was like, this is a good video. Like this, like, so this was reaching everybody. This was not just reaching the grassroots people like you and me, who would certainly identify with a authentic message like this video put out, but this was getting the attention of the big blue check marks as well.
Right.
And but then that just couldn't be. And so let me just want to make clear, like, so this Twitter troll, hey, Twitter trolls are going to be Twitter trolls. This
of course
account was, however, suspended many times and went on to be suspended many times. Again, what made this hurt so bad is what the Bernie campaign did, in essence, was they caved to their enemies, to the disingenuous smears of their enemies. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, and if they know that this bullshit gets thrown all the time, but they're not going to defend one of their own supporters who was a defender of the bullshit smears against them. Anyway, so now let's say, now this is an interesting part. So it was found out that this Twitter account, turns out, was married. She was married to a Wall Street lawyer, big Wall Street lawyer. She's got 2 kids in Yale. So it just couldn't be more clear how the Wall Street crew and big money was against Bernie Sanders. This is just a clear example of that. And again, unfortunately, Bernie Sanders gave in to that rather than fight it like he should have. Let's just face it. If anything's going to make you question your dedication to the Sanders movement, and I still respect Sanders a great deal and the movement he helped ignite, but when the guy going around saying he wants to give everybody a job is going to cancel the job of somebody who spent years of their lives, supporting him and defending him, just because of a bad faith actor and her smears. Like, that's really fucked up.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say, like, that should not have happened to you, period, at all. And this was clearly incompetence on the Bernie Sanders campaign as well as his advisors. And I think you might have seen these reports that we did, Convo Couch, Nico House, and Jimmy Dore, where we've all kind of basically covered stories about Bernie Sanders being advised by Democrats or people who are part of the establishment, basically hijacking his campaign. And there was a big fundamental difference between what we saw in 2016 to what we saw now in 2020. And it's quite clear that the campaign, it should have been more prepared than it should have been. It was not as prepared as it should have been for lack of election integrity or election fraud happening, especially in some of the primary states. But there's a couple things that right now that are really raising alarms, especially towards this statement where the Sanders campaign was saying to you that, well, this question is going to be brought up during the debate. In the early days of Hard Lens Media, especially on our older YouTube channel before YouTube censored us, and we had to move to our new channel, we hosted a lot of forums, town halls, and debates with libertarians, Greens, socialists, community activists, candidates running for office, each one varying in their own way. But the one thing that we had in common was that we never told anyone what the questions would be or how the questions would be lined up. I mean, we kept it very fair. We gave every person there, every town hall or forum that we did, the respect that they were deserved, but we made sure that the questions were fair, but we never told anyone what the questions were. So how did the Bernie Sanders campaign, how did they find out that, well, your video, your content would be then brought up as a question? I mean, obviously they have some connections with someone in the media as well as the DNC establishment. I mean, has there been any kind of look into that? Because if the Sanders campaign was aware of that question, would they be aware of any other questions or how any of the debates would play out? Because throughout those debates, we saw something that was very odd. Bernie kept calling Joe his good friend all the time, his good friend Joe.
Yeah. this case, they did not get it from anybody running the debates. To my knowledge, I was told it was a few media outlets had reached out to them wanting comment, and their rationale for comment is they heard it was going to be a debate question. Although, and one of those outlets though was, I believe, was NBC, since they did cover this. But so anyway, what else can I say about this to wrap it up? But like I said before, when I spoke to you right after this happened, I think it was definitely a bad move. They should be shamed for it. But, I know now more than ever how dirty and messy politics is. Not just can be, but it is. And, they just made the calculation that it'd just be easier to cut me. But I'm no political. I didn't go to fucking Yale and, major in politics or any political strategy. But it sure seems to me it would have played out better for them to, instead of caving, because when you cave, you allow that narrative that their video guy is a racist. You let that kind of you lend some I don't know, so you blow some life into that. No, you should flatly deny it and say that's absolutely absurd. How do you come to that conclusion based on this video, which has nothing to do with race or racism? Like, to pull that out is just insane. So yeah. And needless to say, I think I could have made some damn good videos for them. And I did continue to make some. And they did better even than that Rise Up one, according to my analytics. Now, as far as they didn't get as much exposure, because by that time, I was like a black sheep. They were ignoring me, which is a shame, because it was actually even better work than that one that went viral. And one of the former senior advisors to Bernie, what's her name? I think Winnie Wong. She admitted on Twitter, she said something about, like, we have to stand up and can't cave, like a real revolutionaries don't cave. And I was like, all right, so what happened? Like, why did you, because she deleted a tweet of one of my videos, specifically was like MLK and Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. I noticed she had shared that saying it was the fucking best thing she'd ever seen, and then she deleted it. And so I brought that up and was like, well, speaking of, standing up and not caving, it's like, why did you delete that tweet? Like, and she responded very angrily, just the total tantrum, and saying, I was working on a presidential campaign, so I couldn't share it. Now, what could she not share about this video? Well, there's no profanity. It's literally MLK and Bernie Sanders talking and calling out Donald Trump. That's what the video was. There was nothing, controversial about it. There was nothing unseemly about it. It was just because one guy who happened to make something over 10 years ago, that was mildly controversial, that had some potty humor. That's what it was. And that's so fucking stupid, and that's so counterproductive.
Right.
The whole cancel culture thing. Now, I'll also want to say Winnie Wong did apologize after that. Like, after her rant, she did apologize. Because luckily, other people on Twitter, I think they helped explain to her. They're like he literally just asked you a question, and then she just started cussing me out.
Right.
Like, Winnie, like, what's up with that? And then so she apologized, and I have moved on. I don't mind reliving it with you here now, but I do want people to know that I've definitely moved on, and although I do, like I said, I have a new appreciation and maybe hatred for how messy politics is.
Well, because here's the thing. I mean, the Bernie Sanders campaign, I mean, it is a fact. I mean, they capitulated, they surrendered without really fighting back. And, at the end of the day, if there was ever a time in history where the gods or things starting to lined up for a tailor-made moment for you to really start talking about Medicare for all, UBI, affordable education, dealing with climate change. I mean, right now we're dealing with a pandemic, an economic crisis, a housing crisis, climate change. It's all there. I mean, Bernie Sanders would be definitely, if he had more initiative and people around him were advising him correctly, we would not have the situation with Biden, who has basically said nothing will fundamentally change. But I'm also glad you mentioned cancel culture, too, and people canceling everything. But I think at the same time, too, while everyone's in such a super fast rush to make judgments and cancel people and take things out of context, independent media, what we're all doing here, we are all in the fight for our lives, but yet everyone is remaining silent. And you did an outstanding video, and he even got a shout out by Jimmy Dore as well, about Julian Assange. Now, he is in the fight for his life as well. And it's, of course, let's be very clear, like on social media, you can't talk about Julian Assange. Well, why? Why can't we talk about it? Because he exposed war crimes and corruption, because he did his job as a journalist, something that probably everyone at CNN and MSNBC are envious about, because he did a good job. He exposed corruption. He exposed clearly war crimes and other horrible things that was being done. And yet now he is in the United Kingdom. Well, actually, let's be very clear. He's an Australian citizen who sought refugee in the Ecuadorian embassy, was taken out by the UK. He is now in the UK court. He's being tried under US law. I mean, the whole case itself sounds maddening, and we are now into the fourth week of Julian Assange. Should he be extradited here? Mind you, the United Kingdom has a law where, they can't extradite someone where they're going to be executed. And at least according to what the U.S. standard right now is that they're using the antiquated World War I Espionage Act, where he's at risk of being behind bars for 175 years or being executed. And should he be, put behind bars or worse, dare I say it, it's the end of freedom of speech. It's the end of independent media. And it doesn't matter what your political spectrum is. All your favorite independent media networks, whether they're libertarian or conservative, progressive or socialist, everyone's going to be on the chopping block one way or another. And you wanted to bring this up. So I want to address some of your concerns about what's happening with this case and really what happens to us in the long run should the worst case scenario happen.
So, yeah, I agree. This is a very serious case, and let me just correct one thing. So,
okay,
the U.S. has said that they have not and will not seek the death penalty.
That is true. Yeah,
that's what's allowing. That's why the U.K. is going through supposedly why they're going through with this extradition hearing to determine whether to extradite him to the U.S. under the espionage charges or not. Although there's another thing that should be stopping them, according to their own principles and international law, and that is the fact that they're not supposed to be extraditing people for political reasons. So the U.S. wants them for what they say for espionage, which is totally political. So they're letting that slide though. Now, one way they're trying to get around that and have tried, gotten around it narrative wise is that one of the charges is for conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. Now, which is not a political issue. However, that's just one of 18 counts. The other ones are for obtaining and disclosing information, which is journalism. If obtaining and disclosing information becomes a crime, well, that's why you have so many people concerned about the precedent that this will set on the free press. Obviously, because it would set a significant limit, having to have a incredibly chilling effect on journalism, specifically the kind where national security journalism, where people the whole job revolves around finding and receiving and reporting on government secrets. So to be more specific, it's not just information. The government's argument is this is classified information. And because it was classified, it was too dangerous to publish. But the problem is, Kit, is we know there's a huge overclassification problem in the US. And almost everything that's classified doesn't actually need to be classified and isn't actually a threat to national security.
Well, yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, though. Like, this is something I've been trying to explain to a lot of people, and that is, this case is the life and death of freedom of speech. And the one thing I hate is censorship. And when we lost our older channel to YouTube and its jackboot and how it basically censored us, I mean, we worked our butts off to make that channel a success, and then we got shadow banned. And it's something that I don't wish upon anyone. No content creator. I don't care what your points of view are. I mean, no one should see their channel and everything that they work hard on just disappear on it. And the thing is that, well, what happened to us can happen to any other YouTube platform, anyone on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, because everything's going to be in the chopping block. Then we have to be careful what we say and what we cannot do, and so what I have to ask you is then, what is the future for independent media? Because I've been hearing the same thing from the likes of Nico House, Taylor Huddock, and even the crew at the Convo Couch and Jimmy Dore, and even we here have been saying in Harlan's Media the whole time, like this would be the end. What is your perspective on this?
Well, I think it is something I think about a lot, and it's something to worry about for sure. So, as I think the big issue is, of course, the algorithms. The algorithms are determining so much. Well, first you have the community standards and the algorithms. So community standards have the effect of censoring people who talk about not just stuff that television used to censor, like overtly sexual stuff, or things that are extremely profane or slightly profane. Honestly, let's face it, that's what gets censored, or what used to get censored. And then but it went to another thing, a whole other stuff that's controversial or harmful. They don't say.
So, hold on, Matt. I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat that because I think we kind of lost your signal there for a minute.
Okay. Right. Oh man, it was genius. It was.
Okay, we're gonna just wait for the internet signal to get a little bit better, and then we will. Okay, there we go. I think we got you back again.
Okay. Well, man, I want to pull up my. Let's see. I'll actually pull up my YouTube, Creator Studio. Maybe I can get some direct quotes for you, or maybe you actually remember yourself. But some of the things, just so people know, these things that YouTube is demonetizing these days, it has nothing to do with sexual content or profanity. They do demonetize those things to some extent.
Right.
But the real problem, the real controversial thing is how they're censoring controversial topics. They are censoring controversial topics, demonetizing controversial topics. So in some cases, demonetizing entire channels.
Yeah.
So that's really disturbing. That's incredibly messed up. And that's how you really kill media. That's how you really kill media, and that's how you really control media, is you make it so that only media that pushes what you want. Now, this sounds conspiratorial, but the reality is corporate media produces media to make money. And so independent media. And so if you make it unprofitable to not talk about controversial issues, then you will never get the kind of pushback that you need against certain narratives. Like, we need never-ending war. Like, we need to be the policemen of the world.
Right.
Like, healthcare for all will never work, even though it works in most of the industrialized world. All this, and any number of controversial issues, because in order to have a free society, you need to be able to debate ideas freely.
Agreed. Well, because I think that's a final note to this, because we've been following through as a story, and we do talk about the Assange case on Rockfin because, of course, on YouTube, as soon as you mention anything related to Assange or similar individuals who have heroically stepped up, we see the YouTube censorship happen right away, and there's going to be a cost at it. And at the end of the line will, of course, be corporate media. But, of course, they won't feel it until the very end. But what we've been seeing with this entire pandemic and this economic crisis, that people are tuning out. Many Americans right now, or actually tomorrow, will be either tuning in or tuning out to the presidential debate. And we're going to see Trump and Biden debate. We're going to see these two individuals. And this is everything that's been hyped up since the nominations on both sides have been basically secured. And, I don't think anyone's really excited for this, and nothing is really going to fundamentally change so long as we have neoliberal and neoconservative politicians constantly going back and forth doing team red or team blue. And at the end of the day, many Americans are walking away from it. Some are just not identifying with either political party. So I think as a final note, where do you see, I think, the overall political movement, I guess, was the progressive movement? Where do you see that happening? And then as a secondary follow-up, where can people learn more about you and find you online and on social media?
Let's see. I wish that were an easy question, Kit.
No, hey, man. Well, welcome to Heartlands Media. You're going to be put into the lion's den.
Yeah. I mean, I really do wish it were clear, like, how the progressive movement could move forward. It seems, well, we know we've made the progress we have a lot thanks to social media. Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign was successful because of social media, less so because of his campaign. Not that his campaign deserves no credit, but really, it was the independent media that boosted him to where he could have beat Hillary Clinton, perhaps, if the DNC didn't cheat him, and where he had a fair chance, incredible chance in 2020. But with social media cracking down, the censorship of it, I am worried about certain elements. For example, if we want to discuss anti-war stuff, that's going to be harder to get out because that gets demonetized. In terms of the other issues, like universal healthcare, I think we could just push on basic income, just push on. And that's just what we got to do. We got to keep
pushing back and keep being aggressive.
Keep making content and keep pushing back against the false narratives. And I try to do my little part. I know you do your little part, and my little part is done on youtube.com/Orf. This little site you may have heard of called youtube.com/Orf.
All right.
And Patreon, please.
Well, absolutely, because here's what I have to say to everyone that's watching. Look, independent content creators like Matt Orfalea and all of us here at Independent Media, we would not exist were not for diehard supporters who actually believe in freedom of speech, but also supporting people who are actually bringing truth to power, talking about stories that corporate media will not talk about. And look, I don't know how long this crisis will be, how long this pandemic will last, but Matt Orfalea, I actually invite you to our studio. Should you ever come to Chicago, we would love to have you in here as a special guest co-host. So whenever you come by here, just let us know. Our studio is open, and we're more than happy to have you as a guest and someone who we want to speak truth to power, because we need people who are not afraid, who will be uncensored, and are aggressive. So so real quick, so anyone who's watching, where can they also find you on Twitter as well?
Yes, Twitter at Orf, except the O is a 0. I know I kind of fucked myself there, but it is what it is.
Well,
0RF on Twitter.
Nonetheless, Matt, we're so happy to have you on our show. Thank you for, again, sharing your story with us and also giving us your perspective with the Assange case. And nonetheless, keep doing what you're doing. I'm Kit Cabell, the host of Hard Lens Media. Peace to you guys, and let us all do what we can to build a better future.